Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully, everybody has paper and pen ready. We have a guest here who's bringing level up in the digital era. So, look, you want to take notes today. And as always, we have Christine from Invitation Enterprises. She's our bookkeeping and business consulting guru. And Marcia Mara, she's our leadership coach, and she's the person that can help you, you know, break those barriers that you have created yourself because there's no better or bigger opponent than yourself in life. And me, I'm John Acosta. I'm your business wizard with your marketing needs. And well, without further ado, Vanessa, welcome. How are you today?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you so much. How are you guys?
Good, good. Listen, I just want to do a quick introduction of Miss Vanessa
Please.
because she comes with a extremely impressive background. We met last year at a networking event, and it's just been amazing since then. I mean, I've gained so much knowledge from speaking with her. So I just want to give you guys a quick background that she's the real deal, right? So she's a creative consultant who specializes in branding, marketing, and transferring entrepreneurs and businesses. She's dedicated the last 12 years to building campaigns and communities for startups, creatives, and 100 plus entrepreneurs across the globe. Through her agency, Culture Climax, Vanessa embraces a multifaceted approach in her work involving consulting, speaking, design, events, collaborations, and a spectrum of creative and strategic ventures. Vanessa's purpose statement is leveraging innovation to propel culture. So I appreciate you taking the time to come here and share your wealth of knowledge with our audience. And I'm looking forward to learning something new. So thanks, Vanessa.
Wonderful. I really appreciate your introduction, Christine. And yeah, just happy to share some of this goodness that I've been, teaching clients and sharing in audiences. So looking forward to connect with your audience today.
Absolutely. Welcome, Derek.
Hey, Derek.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm late. I was finishing up with a client. Hi, Vanessa. Nice to meet you.
Hello, Derek. Great to meet you as well. Wonderful. So should I get started?
Absolutely. You want your
Perfect.
your presentation?
Wonderful. I'm a visual person, so slides are helpful, I think, in conveying the message and some of these unique concepts. So I'll share some slides today. So welcome to Level Up in a Digital Era. My goal today is to help you unleash a new mindset, get your juices flowing, and get you excited and optimistic about the possibilities of this digital revolution that we're just starting to kind of get into. So our agenda today will be to talk about disruption, to talk about disruptive concepts and see how innovation is affecting society and business today. We'll share some impacts on the examples, provide some steps and resources to help us all level up personally and professionally. And hopefully that will evolve our mindset about innovation and technology. So let's get right into it. So this all started for me when I worked for an innovation consulting company called OpenEXO. I worked with them for 7 years, and they literally evolved to many sister companies. And throughout that time, we were utilizing the EXO methodology to do 10-week sprints that helped Fortune 500 companies and city governments transform their organizations and implement innovative initiatives. We worked with incredible companies like Visa, Procter & Gamble, the city of Medellin, and more. So I decided, you know what, I want to take these concepts outside of those four walls that we were working in with these huge companies and introduce them to my people, my clients, and my community, which were creatives, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. And that's me in the bottom right. So one of the most important things that I did learn is that our brains are very outdated. Our brains were essentially designed for a local and linear world, and we are basically wired to fear change. So there's a part of our brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is always on alert for anything scary, or dangerous or negative. It's like, think caveman, right? If you're a caveman and you see a mammoth or a mountain lion or something coming, that's our amygdala is still using that operating system in the same exact way. So that means today, change or something different is typically met with a lot of resistance. It's met with doubt or even fear. But we cannot be fearful of the future because we cannot get caught up in our fear of change, or else we'll be left behind. So we have to work harder than ever to not become victim of our negative thought patterns. And I hope today that we all get to better understand this digital revolution, so you can hopefully be less intimidated and more inspired to move forward, because in order for us to survive and thrive, we have to grow and evolve. So there is literally no need to be alarmed or fearful of technology. Technology has always been a driver of change in society. As you can see in this graph, this is nothing new. Each of these technological discoveries were introduced to the world. And when they definitely caused disruption, or they definitely scared the norm, right? So you can imagine when they discovered something like writing, how many people probably met it with resistance and called it witchcraft or something because of the amygdala. So this is a great example of disruption. It's a photo of New York City's Fifth Avenue on Easter morning. On the left-hand side, you can see that horse and carriage are the main mode of transportation. There's only one car, which is circled in red. But during that time, automobiles obviously existed. There's that one there, but they were extremely expensive. So horses were the main mode of transportation. On the right, exactly 13 years later, in that same location on Easter morning, it's all cars. So what happened? Henry Ford disrupted the transportation industry. But how did he make it happen in such a short period of time, just 13 years? He introduced the Model T Ford at an affordable price to compete with horses. But it wasn't as simple as that. After recognizing the challenges of achieving those low costs and low margins, we all remember he pioneered the assembly line, simplifying that production process. And that right there showcases the importance of not only the technology of the cars, because that already existed, but it's also showcasing the importance of a strong business model influenced by technology, by an assembly line. So this example conveys that it's not just about a powerful new technology like the car, like I said, but you also need a powerful business model and a fearless, passionate leader like Ford to achieve that kind of disruptive impact in such a short period of time. So we're seeing that a lot now. So let's fast forward to now. We are just starting to see the beginning of multiple exponential top technologies coming into play. Just naming a few, we literally have drones, solar energy, blockchain, computation, AI, robotics, virtual augmented reality, 3D printing. These are just some of the major technological advancements we're seeing in the world. These technologies are literally transforming every single industry: insurance, healthcare, entertainment, retail, transportation, probably so many more. We will be changing in the next decade because of the convergence of these exponential technologies that I just named and their impact on business models. So exponential growth, to try to simplify it, because I feel like some of us have been hearing that now, right? We hear that on the news. We're learning a little bit about that exponential curve. So what essentially means is that these exponential technologies, the innovations that they are creating, are getting better, more impactful, faster, and less expensive. So as the technologies of these things improve, they're accelerating their own progress and bringing about significant change on how we live and work. So this is literally just the beginning of that inflection point. So what does that mean for us in society? Because of all these exponential technologies, we're on the trajectory of being completely disrupted as a society. Our old linear local ways are becoming exponential and global. Just 5 years ago, before COVID, it wasn't as common to use Zoom meetings or live streams like we're doing now. And now we have how many digital platforms and means to connect all over the globe just from our living room. So that's just a great example of this exponential growth that's happening and how it's changing society. One of the major perks of this digital revolution and the exponential growth that comes with it is the abundance that it has the potential to create. So this is an example of What happens when scarcity changes to abundance? It's fueled by technology. So technology is fueling the transition from scarcity to abundance in society. It's creating a shift from having limited resources to making things widely available. Through all these innovations, tech is helping us turn scarcity, which is not having enough of something, into abundance, making resources and opportunities more accessible for a large population. This is an example of photography moving from scarcity to abundance. Remember the initial business model of photography? It was based on scarcity. You only had 24 pictures on your roll of film, and you had to optimize every shot, and then you'd go get it developed, and that's all you had. How many photos do all of you guys have in your iCloud or your phone at this point? I have at least 20,000 pictures in my phone right now. So that model right there is that shift from scarcity to abundance. That means what we had only a few of, now we have drastically more. That same exact model can be literally applied to so many different industries. Music is really one of my passions in addition to photography. So the music industry has the same exact concept you can apply it to. We went from having a scarcity model. How many of us had vinyls or CDs or tapes? All of us probably, right? Now companies like Napster, iTunes, Spotify have moved to completely disrupt the industry through digitizing music through MP3s. So now we have an abundance of music at our fingertips. And of course, that has so many different implications. That's impacted the music industry business model. The days of making money off of album sales are over. Now musicians make money how? They make money through touring, through merch, through sponsorships, etc. So that's just a few examples of some of the scarcity to abundance in our everyday industries. The Loon, this is the Google Loon. Google Loon is an amazing example of how technology is fueling the shift from scarcity to abundance. The balloon right here pictured, I'm sure they've made it even smaller at this point. This picture is from probably 6 years ago. The Google Loon is providing internet access in remote places around the world. It's bringing which was once a scarce resource, internet, to now remote villages globally. 10 years ago, there were 500 million internet-connected devices. Today, there are over 15 billion internet-connected devices. So probably in the next decade, we'll see at least 1 trillion devices connected on the internet. So again, this is a great example of how things like internet access, which was first only available for a few, is now becoming cheaper and more accessible and in abundance. So now what does that mean? That's leveling the playing field. All of this progress is leveling the playing field to give more people access to innovation and technology. The barriers of entry used to be really high. We had to have degrees, we had to have the capital and the funding and the money. And now anyone who's sufficiently smart and determined to, with a Wi-Fi connection, can make something out of nothing. The abundance has removed those physical limitations. We're not limited by location. We can Zoom. We don't need high overhead. You can go to a co-working space. You don't have to have a ton of employees. You can just hire on Upwork as you need it. The digital revolution is giving more people access to create change. So now that we see what's happening in society, what does that mean for business? As businesses, we need to update the way we work, the way we create value, and our business models. It's not just about the technology. My favorite quote right now, which you'll hear a lot, is tech is the enabler, it's not the solution. So these are some of the famous cases of disruption that we've heard in the last few years. These are major disruptors maximizing the growth capabilities of exponential technology in the abundance that the tech is creating. So these are all some fun cases. We have Netflix obviously disrupting TV and so many other things. Google disrupts web, of course, other things as well. Airbnb is disrupting travel. Tesla disrupted automobiles and storage of energy. Canva disrupts graphic design. Apple disrupts music players. Uber disrupts transportation. Facebook disrupts communication and so many others. SpaceX disrupts space exploration. Amazon disrupts retail, cloud computing, and so much other stuff, right? And ChatGPT, which is my personal favorite right now, is disrupting content creation, customer support, education, and so much more. For example, it's not that Uber, think about what Uber did. They didn't reinvent the actual wheel. They didn't reinvent cars. They made transportation more accessible by using an app, technology, and therefore creating an abundance of access to cars. So we're thinking about it in that sense that it's not about technology being the answer to everything. It's just enabling that growth, enabling that abundance, enabling that reach. So let's talk about scarcity and abundance a little bit more. The element that all of those companies that I just named, all of those big disruptors have in common, they have an abundance-based approach, using tech as the enabler. The old ways of scarcity thinking and linear approaches and being limited by resources are on their way out. Traditionally, success used to be measured by tangible assets and resources and material possessions, right? That was the old way of thinking. But now this new landscape, success is increasingly being redefined by factors that go beyond just accumulation. The success paradigm is actually closely tied to tech advancements and disruptions. Companies and individuals who can harness that power of abundance to create efficiency or solve problems are actually considered very successful in this modern era. So we all heard about Uber. For a few years, they were not turning any profit, right? They had this crazy high evaluation, but they weren't turning profit, but still considered one of the most innovative companies of our time. So the paradigm of that traditional success thinking is now shifting before our eyes. So as you can imagine, rolling out all of this technology definitely creates a domino effect for good and bad. I always try to think positive, so I'm focusing on the positive today. So let's think about a different example of technology, about autonomous cars. Autonomous cars are obviously shifting the driving experience, right? We're no longer going to have to drive, but what does that mean for society? That means it might slow down the accident patterns. There might be a change in traffic patterns. That means changing city planning. That's going to shift how we use parking garages because we're going to have autonomous cars. They're not going to be always our cars anymore. We can have other people use them while we're at work. So not only that, think about real estate. This is one of my favorite examples, is how real estate means, what autonomous cars means for real estate is that people may not have to physically drive to a commute anymore. Think about if you commuted to Miami right now from, we're in Delray Beach or Boca Raton. If you didn't have to drive to that through Miami traffic, that means on the way to work, you can read a book, you can have a meeting, you can get work done. And that means that leverages more opportunity to live outside of cities. You can live more in the suburbs or more in rural areas because you're not burdened with that drive anymore. You have someone autonomous or the autonomous vehicle driving you. And obviously that means implications for fuel, energy, emissions, and therefore climate change. So there are so many unique implications of this digital revolution. What happens when we start creating an abundance of energy through solar or water? If our basic needs of society are met by the abundance created by technology, then the paradigm of work and life starts shifting. So hopefully now we have a better understanding of disruption, and we're starting to get rid of that pessimism or that cynicism, and we're controlling our amygdala reactions to embrace and accept that all of this will happen, and the possibilities of achieving transformation are literally here at our front door. So we're going to jump into PACT. So this is how we level up in this digital revolution. How do we take this to our day-to-day? How do we maximize these opportunities at our front door? How do we become more adaptable, more disruptive, and more purpose-driven? We start by making a PACT, which is an acronym that I created to help us implement everything we've been talking about today. So the P in PACT stands for purpose, and it's number one for a reason. We hear about purpose a lot, and I cannot stress enough the importance of purpose, especially in business. It's so important to be clear about what we're professionally invested in and why. Because we're in this new space of abundance, the paradigm is shifting towards purpose instead of always profit. Think about Ford, for an example. Ford was literally driven by purpose. He was a fearless leader dedicated to that purpose of introducing automobiles to society. So how do we achieve purpose? How do we outline it? How do we name it? How do we get clear about it? So one of my favorite examples of implementing purpose in business is through a concept called massive transformative purpose. Massive transformative purpose is a concept from that EXO methodology that I referenced earlier. This MTP, or massive transformative purpose, is a statement that acts as a North Star for setting the direction of a company into the future. It's not a mission statement. It's not a vision statement. It's about thinking big and creating that big aspirational holistic purpose of your organization. It's also awesome because it attracts talent who's also aligned with that purpose. And of course, it's going to also attract customers and clients or partners who are also attracted to that purpose. So it also keeps you on track because a lot of businesses tend to run every single business decision through that MTP. Is it aligned with our MTP? And if not, toss it. So let's have a little exercise here. These are some MTPs, massive transformative purposes, for large organizations. Can anyone guess which companies have these MTPs? So the first one is belong anywhere. Second one is organize the world's information. Third is ideas worth spreading. 5 is we are in business to save our home planet. And 6 is music for everyone. Oops, 5, sorry. Music for everyone. So can anyone guess?
The thing is that I remember a few of them, but the brand does not like get to me right away.
I know ideas worth spreading is TED.
Yes, there you go. Okay.
Okay, let's see the answers. So Airbnb, Google, TED, Patagonia, and Spotify.
Mhm.
Those are some of the big MTPs that are famous right now. So these 2 questions have helped that we use these questions during our branding sessions with clients. They start getting you to think about your purpose or your MTP. If you think about it in the context of what problems get you excited about solving, and then find the technology or the capabilities or the business model to help you support or solve that. So if you had $10 million, what would you do? Or what gets you excited to wake up at 6 a.m.? Those questions start pulling out some of those little gems that you can start seeing. Actually, if my needs were met, what would my purpose be? What would get me excited to wake up to do in the morning? So these are some fun questions to start getting your juices flowing, to start creating that MTP for yourself or your business. All right, the next letter is A for authenticity. The authenticity impact is all about being you and building your brand around it. Whether you're launching your brand, your company, your campaign, your consumers or customers are watching your every single move publicly now. This is beyond just being honest and having integrity. It also means being you. Are you colorful or are you grayscale? Do you curse a little or do you quote Seinfeld on your Instagram? What is your brand about? How can you be authentic online or on your brand or in public? So if you trust your instincts and you really show up authentically, the right people will start to align with you. So how can you bring authenticity to your brand? So the number one thing that we tell clients with Culture Climax when it comes to content creation and social media and blogging and taking those next steps, the number one thing to be authentic and to show your community what you're about is to be a resource. Being a resource, being a resource means that you start to share those resourceful tips and tricks that bring value to your followers. Start positioning yourself as the go-to resource in your field or in your industry or in your region or in your niche. So that can mean something like last week I met with a photographer in Miami, and he's going to create reels or TikToks about the certain angle he's using when he positioned himself to capture a specific shot. He shoots events specifically, so that's a very niche market, right? So he's going to go to his events and create content that shows exactly what you need to do to capture that certain shot. That right there is being a resource. You're going to attract your community, which we'll talk about later. So this is a great exercise that we all can do to create your brand voice. Your brand voice essentially is how you speak when you are out in the world as a brand or as an entity. So this simple exercise can be applied every time you create content, every time you create graphics, or you participate in any marketing, advertising, or sales. Make sure that your brand sounds like you. So let's go through what Culture Climax, my agency, we'll go through what our brand voice is. So who we are passionate, we are liberating, and we are definitely unconventional. So when we speak, that means we're being casually enlightening, And what does that mean? That means we're being a savvy connector and a visionary. So another example of this brand voice can be a CBD company that we worked with. The CBD companies was, who are we? We're fun, we're brave, and we're smart. So when we speak, we're wonderfully raw. That means being straightforward and spontaneous. So take a screenshot or write this down and start filling out your brand voice. How can you capture that brand voice to show up authentically in the world as a brand? So there's 2 A's in PACT. It's like ACT because the second A is agility. Agility means being like a ninja. It means being flexible. It means being lean. Don't be tied to outcomes from outdated business plans or models. This means being agile. It means embracing the pivot. It means failing fast. You do not even need a business plan or a master's degree anymore. All of the access has leveled the playing field. So you have to remain agile to remain relevant. One of my favorite visuals for being agile and helping our clients think agile is this visual right here. This is essentially the minimum viable product graphic. So let me explain. As a company, you have to experiment. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you relevant. Because a lot of the times we get too caught up in the service we're providing or the product that we're creating, and we forget the customer, or we'll forget the problem that we're solving. So by implementing this approach, which is called minimum viable product, we focus on the underlying need of the customer. So for example, the customer here needs to get from A to B faster. The car is just one of those possible solutions. So remember, the car is just a metaphor here. So the real approach is to start by building this skateboard, because that can be a way the customer gets there. And then when we start building these little tools or these little solutions, then we can get feedback. We can start testing. We can say, hey, customer, will this work for you? Actually, it will or it won't. Here's why. And one of the great examples that I can use for minimum viable product is thinking about Instagram. How many of us had Instagram when it first came out? What was the only feature? They had one feature, which is the skateboard, for example, posting photos. That's it, right? And then their little scooter, the second thing that they did was Instagram stories, because they got feedback from the customer. They saw what worked and what didn't. Then their bicycle, number 3, was maybe Instagram Live. And then 4, their motorcycle was Instagram Reels. And now I would say 5 for Instagram would be the bookmarks. You can save Instagram posts now and create your own little bookmarks, right? And so within that time, obviously it wasn't just as simple as going from lives to stories to etc. They had fails, right? They had the IGTV that obviously changed. They marketed different. They put it in a platform differently. So this means that if I could have one takeaway from here is don't strive for perfection. Build your product or your service slowly and make sure it works. Make sure the customer likes what you're doing before you go all the way to that expensive car or that expensive final product. Help yourself fail fast and embrace those pivots. So the C in PACT is for community. Community is one of the driving forces behind some of the most powerful brands and movements. Whether you're Beyonce's Beehive or you're the empowered entrepreneurial education group, you find people who are aligned with your purpose or your MTP. And then that community is the engine that fuels your growth in order for you to achieve that MTP. So think about some of those MTPs we saw earlier, right? We saw TED. That was one of the examples that you got right. So TED is all about community. They actually have, it's like a fully community run business, right? So if I wanted to start a TED Talk in Delray Beach, I'm fully empowered to do that. I can get all the tools and the brand and all of those things to be able to start my own TED Talk because they fully empower their community. So how do you find your community? The example I shared earlier when it came to content is really big when it comes to community. Think about that event photographer that I was sharing the example for. He is creating that content to attract people who are going to absorb that content, right? So then maybe he can, after reaching a certain amount of followers or a certain amount of likes on his content, then his next step is to create a photography class, right? He tested the model. He said he has this many people responding to that kind of content, that they love, that he showed exactly what position to get into to capture that photograph. So being a resource is really so important, sharing your skills through that content. So whether it's videos, photos, blogs, live streams, toolkits, ebooks, and going out there and going to events like Christine and I, we met at my networking event, or meetups or tech talks, and even groups and organizations like this group right here, like finding your tribe, go to online groups, explore different labs in your area to really build that community and help you achieve your MTP. And I also think sometimes we take for granted that we have social media right now. We have so many free tools, all these free tools that we get to use to connect and to build our brand. So take full advantage. From Substack to LinkedIn to everything in between, there are so many free ways to connect with your community. So go out there and find your tribe. And this last letter of PACT is T, and T stands for tech as a tool. Sometimes I think we get confused between the tool and the solution. And I want to drive in here with T as tech as a tool, that tech is not the solution. It's just the enabler, right? So use tech as a tool to help you work smarter, not harder. Out of all those examples we went through, from Henry Ford to Uber, tech wasn't the solution to all of their problems, but they used it as an enabler to improve their business model or improve the existing offerings. So tech as a tool and not the solution will help us get there faster. So whether you're using ChatGPT to proofread all your blog posts or to generate content ideas, or you're Googling different types of business models for your industry, this is a very unique time that we're able to tap into tech and we'll use a lot of it for free. So let's make sure we make the most of it. So today, to wrap up, we just planted the seeds. This is little planting seeds. Next, it's up to you to take the next step and take that pact to have an abundant mindset and abundant future. Feel free to get in touch with me or my sister through Culture Climax to explore future collaborations or support in your growth. And I'm going to end it with one of my favorite quotes right now, which is, "The best way to predict the future is to invent it," by Alan Key. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, that was really, really good.
Thank you.
So anybody has any questions so far? Okay.
So I want to know,
So-
how do we start thinking about our MTP?
So
Like,
I would go,
Where,
hold on, let me go
is
back.
that a personal? Are we looking at personal, or should we be looking?
So we recommend that you have one for yourself and your business. Sometimes it's easier to start one for yourself because you're not so limited by all those thoughts, right? So start thinking about these questions. So if we're in a state of abundance where our basic needs are met, say that solar provides free energy, or water is being desalinated so we don't have to meet some of those basic needs, and you don't have such high overhead, what are you going to do, right? What if you had $10 million in the bank and you didn't have to necessarily work to live? what are some of those passions that you started seeing come out, right? So what are some of those things that you're like, oh, I would always wanted to do this. I'm so passionate about it, or I'm excited about it, or I want to solve that issue, or I want to help that niche, or whatever it may be. Start thinking about that in that context of what would I do if I didn't have to work to live, right? So for your business, that can really carry over, right? Because typically someone like me leverage innovation to propel culture. That's my personal mission. But then I created the business Culture Climax to be able to do that, right? So you can really carry it over. It doesn't have to be two separate ones. It can merge, or you can have a variation of it for your business. But really think about it being a big, audacious goal. Think big. Think 10 years from now. Don't think this year when you're creating that MTP.
Okay.
I'll ask a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So there's so many options out there in regards to how you're going to spend your time on all this technology, right? All these different social medias, different tools to use. So what are some tips that you have in terms of how do you find like which, because if you're like an entrepreneur and you only have like a certain amount of time, right? Like, okay, there's LinkedIn, there's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Threads, there's all these different things. How do I know like what to spend the most time on? Is it like where you get the most traction, the most followers? Is it worth trying to invest time in a social media platform that maybe you don't have as much of a following, but in the long run could be good for you? I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Honestly, if I had like 2 more hours, I would have covered so much more, because that's a really important aspect of our brand development is we call it avatar, because that's our version, but it's your brand customer, right? Who is consuming, who is your audience, and go to where they are. So that means that you have to get a little bit more clear about your brand audience, which we have an exercise that as part of our branding that we do that, but get really clear about who is absorbing or you're creating content for, or you're providing services or products for, and find them and go to where they are. So that doesn't mean you have to be on every single social media platform. Actually, I don't really recommend that, right? Like I've had certain clients who are like, should I use LinkedIn? I'm like, no, you shouldn't use LinkedIn, because that's not where your tribe is, or vice versa. People who are more business oriented, like, oh, should I create Instagram or TikTok? And I'm like, no, not now, because then you're going to just put so much effort into formatting content for every single outlet that you're going to miss the point, which is really connecting to that audience. So if I can make one recommendation, is create just a one sheet, or get help or ChatGPT or us or someone to help you create that understanding of who is your audience, where are they, where can you find them, and then go there.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And regarding now that we cover a little bit of the social media aspect, you mentioned our friend ChatGPT. How much do you recommend to use it? Because there's a lot of people that are creating blogs and content with a straight copy paste mentality, and sometimes not even representing their own businesses.
Absolutely, honestly. And I feel like we can all see that and know that, right? And that's why authenticity is so important. And that's why I really stress this slide and this particular portion, is because I feel that humans, we instinctively know when something is fake or real, right? Like we can look at a musician performing or someone posting and be like, that feels really salesy, or really like they're trying too hard, right? It just doesn't feel authentic. And so I personally believe that everyone can feel and understand and see that. So I do follow it. Like I have a few friends who I've seen them transition their business newsletters to full ChatGPT, and I could just smell it. I'm like, oh wow, like they don't even try anymore, right? They just have ChatGPT write it. So, but I can tell, and we're very intuitive beings, right? And we're smart, and so I feel like that's the differentiator, right? If you want to go ahead and do that, hey, no judgments, no more power to you, but your audience is going to know. And then you're going to have more and more space come between you and your audience because you're not being authentic, and then you're losing them because you're lacking authenticity. So I always say, like, when it comes to ChatGPT, I use it as a tool, not the solution, right? So I'll drop in, I used it for some of this deck, right? I'm like, hey, I'm trying to better word this scarcity to abundance to make it easier to understand as a concept. Can you help me? Maybe one sentence came out of it, right? But that sentence kind of helped me frame it a little better. It's like me having a sounding board, but like an online digital free sounding board, right? So use it as a tool. It's not the solution. People can see right through it.
So it's a great tool for research and get your starting point. From there on, if you want to be authentic, you really have to do your homework.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Good question.
And then you don't find your audience if you're using ChatGPT, right? You're not going to find the people, you're not going to find your tribe. Someone else will show up and you're like, I don't want to work with these people, but that's what your voice is saying, that you do want to work with these type of people. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Your tribe will be attracted to those little quirky words you use or that brand voice that you're conveying. Like I said, do you sometimes curse, or do you sometimes, quote Seinfeld or The Office? Like being authentic means being real, right? And having your little bits of your brand or your personality shine through whatever it is that you're creating. And that's what's going to attract your tribe and your community and help you grow.
Yes. All right. So quick question, because you did mention that if you had 2 hours, we could have covered another topic. Do you think we can have you here another day when you have the time?
Absolutely. I was telling Christine, it'd be great to do, part of this was a workshop. Originally, I presented this live. I remember one time I did it for Flamingo House, which is a co-working group in Boca. And the second half of this was a workshop, a business model canvas workshop, where you can kind of sum up your business model and your audience and your different elements of your business in a one-page canvas. And I gave Pepsi as an example or Uber as an example just to show. And it's like a really good way to work out some of these details. And then maybe also help you get that brand avatar as well. Like where are they? Are they going to be on in person? Or are they going to be online? And so that exercise helps you kind of get clarity on that. So that's one of the exercises I would do and jump more into kind of living it, like living some of these tools. Those are agile tools, right? Those are disruptive tools. What, we don't have to create a business model anymore. I used to be scared of having to write a business plan in my past because I'm like, oh, it's so extensive. And I feel like it's like I'm going to have to be tied to it. But now you can literally create a business plan on a one-page canvas that was introduced by some gentleman in Switzerland like 15 years ago, right? So it's like so disruptive in a sense that it's like, it keeps you agile, it keeps you aligned, and it helps you work through those big ideas very, very concisely. So that could be one of the things I come back for.
Okay, we would love to have you back. On the meantime,
yes, we'll definitely have to have you back then.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think I speak for all of us. I really love your presentation. Thank you very much for being here today. And where can we find more about your company? What's your website? Or where can people get in contact with you?
Absolutely. So my email address is vanessa@cultureclimax.com. And my website is just cultureclimax.com. I'm happy to send the slides or a slide or whatever that would help support you guys on these next steps. Feel free to reach out to me and see what we can do. And I also, like I said, I provide consulting services for small businesses, creatives, and artists, entrepreneurs. And some of those sessions that we love to do for small businesses are like MTP sessions, right? The massive transformative purpose, help you pull that out, or branding. We do brand kits and brand decks for small businesses. And then, like I said earlier, the business model canvas workshop is also very helpful. So maybe we can do that in the near future as a group.
That'd be fantastic. I would love to. So let's connect. Let's figure out when can we do our next session. And anybody else has anything to add or say at this point?
Oh, thank you.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I just wanted to thank you also and reinforce basically what you were saying. I'm kind of summarizing, but the tool is only as good as the person using it, right? So get educated about it, learn more about how to use it, practice a little bit more so that you can use it effectively, because ultimately it's up to you.
So true. Thank you so much, Marcy.
Alrighty. So, well, friends, family, everybody who's watching at this point, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next live in 2 weeks. Have a great week. Bye.